Thanks for joining us at DesignWorks TV. This video is designed for new users of DesignWorks for Autodesk Inventor utilizing the roamer arm. This video assumes you've already been through the getting started for probing. We'll be mainly covering all the tools for scanning in this video. So one of the first things that you learn how to do in probing is do an alignment. We're going to do the same thing when scanning. So we're going to select the XY plane. We're going to come up to the DesignWorks tabs, and we're going to select Alignment Wizard. Again, we're assuming you've been through the probing. So in probing, you already know how to take 3 points for an alignment. So this is the plane. Tap the button, X positive, and a Y positive. Then if you have the newer style, there's a little button underneath here. You're going to push to the side. Hold it. So again, since you already did probing, we're just going to make a simple alignment. This is going to be against the part, like an X positive, Y positive, and we're going to just pretend origin's right here. Again, on the newer arms, you're going to press a button on the side. And the first thing you should do then, technically, is save your part. So there's nothing in the sketch right now. So let's exit the sketch. And it might not let us save up something with nothing in the part, but it's going to. Some systems will and some won't. Give it some name. So what we want to do now, if you're using an older arm, such as a RS3 or 4, you will want to take the probe out. On the RS5 and RS6, you don't have to, but most people do take it out. So we're going to take the probe out. But again, you don't have to in RS5 and 6. So what we want to talk about now is going into RDS systems. So on the lower right corner of your screen, we're going to go into RDS. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at changing to the laser. So there's many different ways to do this. This is an easy way if you don't want to use the buttons on the device. If you have an RS3 or 4, it's the little switch on the side of the arm. You move it up. So if you have a newer 5 or 6, you can do it from the device. This is just another way. You can actually select this and switch it up. And it's going to show you a little pull down. We're going to switch to the laser. Now you know the laser's on. This happens to be the RS6, and it's got shine. So let's go into the settings once. Let's talk about some settings here. Under general parameters, you have your language. Under here are your probes. Smart, it's up to you if you want to transmit back and forth to hexagon. What's important is under the RS6 devices, where you've got a 3, 4, 5, or 6. If you need to change this, you normally want this to be like automatic normal if you're on like RDS like 4, 3 and 4, and even 5. It's a little different under RDS 6. It's not called automatic and normal. It's called point sampling. To change all this, you have to come up here and select the standard. And on most systems, you'll select advanced user. And you'll want to put this in here and say, show me. The password is advanced. It just happens to be on ours. Ours is administrator. But under everybody else's, it's usually advanced. Make sure you use a capital A, D, V, A, N, C, D. Okay. Once you're in there, all this changes. So on the RS3, 4, and there's a different looking box, you'll want like automatic normal, and your points sampling or your settings, probably 50. Under RDS 6, it's a little different. You'll change your point sampling here. So you're set to it on the RS6, it's 50 and 100. I believe on RS5, you have 25, 50, and 100. So if it's RS6, set it on 50. If it's any other one, set in the middle, 50 or so. On the RS6, you want shine by default, and you don't need 300 unless you're doing something that's got teeny data. Leave it on 100. So again, this looks different if you're under RDS 4, 5, and 6. This happens to be 6 for a RS6. So we'll select save. Also, let's go look at advanced settings. You want to turn all these off, as well as haptic feedback. Under access control, you can leave that alone, and features, all that's fine. One thing under RS6, if you're having trouble connecting, you may need to call hexagon, but you'll want to normally go to connection, and it's different settings up here for different devices. So if you're having trouble connecting, contact hexagon, because this is all changed. Under the RS3 and 4, it might say USB and Ethernet, or like this one, it could be Wi-Fi Ethernet. So again, you would have to contact hexagon to help you with this part and say quit, and then we'll close this. You don't want to leave this open. So to start scanning, it's very simple. You'll select DesignWorks Scan, and out of the system here, by default, it's going to come up to a new ribbon. So there's different tabs. This is for probing. This is for scanning. Inside this ribbon for scanning, you're going to select Scan. Now, out of the system, out of the box, you don't have to change anything. You can move this where you want it. By default, the mesh triangle size is set to 30. Leave it alone, it's fine. Leave all this set. This is called a clipping plane, which we'll explain in a minute. If we took the front plane and drug it up, this would tell us that we don't want to scan either below or above it. Normally, you'll put it there and you'll say, hey, it clips it off anything below it. So let's show you this once. If we pick the XY plane, and we're normal to it, so if we want to be here and sit front, our alignment's normal to that. We'll roll it up for a second with a 3D ball or up there. If we raise this up, if we went to 3D model, plane, offset from plane. Let's raise this up like, in this case, this is say 0.25. Okay. So when we go back into the scan tab and say scan, we could say clip plane and select this. So what it's going to do on your part is, instead of scanning and getting the table, that plane's up here in space, and we set a 1/4 inch, it'll actually only pick up things that are above that plane. You can change it and say other side. So to scan, it's very simple. You pick up the device, and there's a trigger. You don't hold the trigger, you tap it once on all devices. This has to be RS6. It's got a box and a line. On the RS3 and 4, it's got a line with a dot. Just keep them somewhere close together. Doesn't have to be perfect. So to start scanning, you're going to see a preview line on your screen. Now, right now we did the alignment, but we're not really zoomed in. So we might scan a little bit and show you the preview line. So we're actually going to tap the button and start scanning, and tap it to stop. So I'm going to zoom out, and then we'll actually somewhat center the screen. You'll come back, you'll see the line, and in some scanners there's a line and a dot. RS6 has a line and a box. Line up the little red line in the middle, tap it, start scanning. You do not hold it, you tap it once to start, tap it once to stop. So if I want to switch positions, don't leave it tapped all the time. If you say, hey, I want to turn it and get this back, turn it, tap the button again. You can scan back and forth. Just watch how you're scanning that's covering it, that you're not going too fast or too slow. You'll get the hang of it. So let's say I'm going to the side. I'm going to tap the button to stop. I'm going to move it down here. You see the preview line? Tap it to start. What you're doing by starting and stopping it is when you're dragging all around, you're eliminating the chance of getting some erroneous data. We'll tap it to stop. So like right here, that's a single line scanner. We weren't normal to it, so we tapped it to stop. We're going to tap it again because we're normal to it. Then come over here, we'll get normal to this. But let's say you were on the back and you want to jump all the way to the front, tap the button to stop. You want to try to eliminate too much excess data. If it looks good, don't go over it 10 times. Now we have automatic filtering, which should allow you to eliminate that, but it's just best practices. So here, you notice it didn't get the data right in here. We weren't normal to it, so turn it normal. Tap the trigger. Once you scan it, tap it to stop. If we want to move towards the front, come back up here, tap the trigger. I'm going around a camera here, so that's why I'm reaching around. Again, the trick is holding it normal to it. Here I want to tap it to stop. I'm going around the camera. Tap it to start. It's really this easy. Now, after you've scanned a little bit, you want to save this. The laser data is saved separate from the model. So down here, you want to say save DZWL. So best practices, what we usually do, the default was 30,000. So give it some kind of name. This is just a name we throw in there. Put something you can identify. We'll say like scan 1, and the default settings is it's 30,000. So we'll say 030. You don't need the decimal. And hit save. So now that's saved in case something happens. You can reload it. So let's say we want to continue scanning some more. I'll kind of zoom out a little bit. Take the device, come up to where you want to scan, tap the button once. It's a trigger. So you're tapping the trigger once to start. And you continue to scan. The whole key is keeping this normal to the device. So see, I'm holding it kind of normal to this windshield, then normal to, the roof. So it's that easy to scan. We'll rotate a little bit. So notice back here, there's some little undercut areas. I want to make sure I get those. Again, I need to be normal to those. So I'll come back here, I'll tap the button to start. And I'll point it, so think of a flashlight. You're pointing it normal to the side. Same way the scanner works. It's normal to it. And the back. Come to the back of this. I'm turning it normal to it. Like looking straight at it. Tap it to stop. So you can see up on the front, the hood scoop. We didn't get back in there. We're going to hold it normal to it. See the preview line? Tap it to start. And here, we want to get this other stuff. You can drag over it. But you just don't want to start dragging all the way from to the back. Tap it to stop. Then I'll come over here. I'll hold it on an angle. And get that little side. So that's exactly how easy it is to scan. So we added some more data. Let's come back in here and say save. We use the same one. So what if you wanted to see it more dense? So we had it on 30 thousandths. And you notice the laser captures a lot of data with RS6, even turned down. There's 1.1 million triangles. So when you install DesignWorks, it talks about your hardware specs. If you're doing models with 1 to 2 million triangles, you need at least an 8 gig graphics card. If you're doing something with like 5 to 6 gig of data or 5 megs of data, you're going to want to even look at maybe a 16 gig graphics card. So here's why. We utilize the GPU, which is the video card, for processing. It's very fast. So let's say I want to see this more dense. You can change this number. Let's make it 20. Click on the screen. It's going to update it. That's probably going to go to 2 million triangles. This is where, if you got a model like this, it's like 20 by 15, and you've got a ton of data, you need a good graphics card because we're utilizing all the power to get it this fast. So look, we went to 2.5 million triangles. But now you can see just exactly how intense it is and how crisp everything is. Here's where you might want to save it again. Save. And I'm going to change it. I'm going to just click it to get it there. I'm going to put like 20. You want to keep these, identify them. Now that you've captured your data, we're going to talk a little bit about what do you do with the data. There's a complete third video called Pro Mesh, which is working with all the mesh tools. So let's go in here to Mesh Features. This is where you use these tools to build data on it. If it's the first time you've used it, come over here and resize this and cover up the Inventor screen. Then drag this to where you want it and put it wherever you want. This is the Mesh Features window. These tools allow you to build data on your mesh. There are hotkeys that are sometimes used. Hit the F1 key. Click on this window with the mouse, left click, then hit F1. Here's your hotkeys. Now, these aren't used all the time. If you're using a roamer arm, you're probably not going to use most of these very often. We also work with handheld devices, so we need these tools for some cleanup and things. But maybe later as we talk about it, maybe some hole filling and things like that. But you're not going to use these a lot with the roamer arm. They're there for cleaning up data most of the time. So hit F1 to turn it off. So let's talk about some basic things. But again, there's a third video that goes in depth and has a part and you're going to do. So once you have this mesh, we're using the 3D connection space ball. You can do that or hold down the mouse middle wheel to turn it, or roll the wheel on the 3D mouse on the actually 3-button mouse to zoom in and out. But the 3D connection device works great. So now that you have the mesh, we're going to talk about how do you identify things. And we're not going to go in full depth. This is just a basic, so you can watch the third video. There's different ways to paint on the model. So up here is where you build things from it. This is like planes, mid-planes, loft. This is like your tree and Inventor. And here, selection, we're going to talk about. There's brush, normal, curvature, 3D brush. So this would be like the brush. If you hit the Q key, and again, it's in the F1 hotkeys, it'll change to a square. And you can make it bigger or smaller by hitting the plus key. So let's talk about some basic painting once. We call it painting on the model. When you paint on a model, notice this side's blue. That's outside. Green is inside. Now, if you just want to work on the outside only, you'd come over here and you'd say, I want to work on only the front. And I only want to paint one side. So let's say, for example, you wanted to actually do something with the roof. Here's one way you could do it. And again, we're not going to go too much in depth. There's a whole video on it. So if I took this and held on the left mouse button, you could paint it like this. But wherever you paint is where you're going to be able to identify something. Well, I used the brush, but notice how it didn't get to the extents. There is another option called normal that you hold down the left mouse button. Look what it does. It paints to like the extents. Now, that's controlled by this slider. Left is less, right is more. So if you keep it in the middle, it's a pretty good selection. To get rid of everything on the screen, we'll hit the space bar. We'll start over. Now we're on normal. It likes to paint, and it will actually go almost to the edges. Now see, you went too far. If you want to get rid of that, Okay, you didn't like it. You can hold down the control key. Can I go like this? Or switch to the brush. There's hotkeys. B for brush. Hold down the control key and do this. So there's different ways to do this. So I'm going to go back to normal. And there's hotkeys for normal too. It's N. See, I turn this down a little bit. I can get close to the edges. So in SolidWorks, if you're really going to do that, and here you see I've got just a little bit too much, you would probably use their loft tool. Okay? And this is what you would do in DesignWorks. You could use the loft tool up here. So, but before you did it, you need to make sure everything's extended past the trim. By default, the loft's set to about 10%. It's 10% of the volume. So volume you're painting. Maybe extend this a little bit just to show you. And again, we're not going to go in too deep here because there's a whole video for it. We're going to extend it here by 17% and say, I want to do a loft. It's defaulting to 15 sections. You can change this. So now we've got 15 sections. There's your loft. Now, in here, you can check it. You can turn this on and off. When you're actually painting, I would tell you to turn it off. Turn on the accuracy analyzer and come over here. Hold the mouse over it. It shows you the accuracy. This is mesh to mesh. It normally always shows really good in here because that's all of our math. The real proof is once you build the surface. We'll do that in a minute. So let's turn that off for a second. Accuracy analyzer. Talk about other ways to paint. So let's say you want to do this hood. You might not want normal. We'll go back to the brush. Or you can hit B for brush. It's under those hotkeys. And maybe you say, I want to do the hood. I want to do a mold for this hood scoop. You might want to paint it like this. You should normally make it a little bit bigger to overlap it. Unless you want to use the extend. So let's say you wanted to make something that went on this. And again, the Pro Mesh video that's using these same mesh features, it's going to go over all the primitives. Cones, cylinder bosses, and different ways to paint. This is more, again, your intro. So let's use that. And let's say, let's build a surface. So now it's going to complete that. We'll turn on the accuracy analyzer. You come over here and mouse over it. It'll show the accuracy. The RS6 scanner, RS5, very accurate. RS4 as well. You're going to get good data from all those scanners. RS3, 4, 5, and 6. So to actually see this in the Autodesk Inventor tree, you hit the green checkbox. It's going to write this to the tree. So now you've got a mesh and surfaces. If you want to not see the mesh, you could say show hide mesh. Now you only see the surfaces. And they're in the tree. And the loft has all the cross sections. So this is a place where you probably should save your part. Now let's talk about feature to mesh validation. This allows you to validate / inspect your data that you created during the process. It's not for full-blown inspection that has GD&T and things like that. It's for mainly you, the engineer, inspecting your parts during the process. We're going to say feature to mesh validation. You select the surfaces or whatever it might be. So you can pick here from the tree. Actually, pick from the tree or the screen. If you're picking from the screen, make sure the arm's back in the home position. If it's moving around a lot, it won't let you pick it. And we're going to pick this one. And we're going to say visualize errors. Now this is the first time you used it. We're going to want to resize the screen. And again, the speed of this is all about your computer. This happens to be an i7 with the 8 gig NVIDIA card. I believe it has 64 gig of RAM. If If your models are bigger, you want more. So resize that like you did the mesh features. We can rotate it around. Now you can adjust this over here. By default, it's set to like +10, -10, which is a good setting out of the box. If you take your mouse and left click on here, you'll notice you're going to see balloons. This is the accuracy of the surface created in Autodesk Inventor back to the mesh. You can see we're holding tenths. This is where the real numbers come into play, because when it builds the surface, it could be a little different because we're relying on the algorithms for Autodesk Inventor. But you can see the accuracy is amazing. And you can rotate this around. If you want to move the balloons, this little button here will turn on auto and turn auto off. If auto's off, you see it turns pink. You can drag these. When it's not like a pinkish color, it's in auto mode. So if you turn it off, they won't turn. You only zoom in and out. Also, the F1 key shows the help in here too. So if you click on the screen, hit F1, you'll see the help keys. Like undo, last, show, hide, scan data. The thing you want to do, though, one of them is S, captures the data out to inspection. So F1 turns these on and off. The S key will save out a view. Rotate your part. You have unlimited amount of views you can put on your report. Turn it every way you want it. S key. Now select the green checkbox. Now, you might want to say, one thing you want to have is have Excel on your computer. Say you want to merge it all into one line, you can merge it, or you can have separate columns. I'm going to say merge it in Excel. I'm going to say create report. So what this is going to do is all the numbers you've seen from the balloons are going to be put into your report with information. You can close that if you want. Here's your standard deviation, your min-max. Down here's your image sheets we saved. All on your report. And you can print this out. So there's a good overview of how to scan with DesignWorks for Autodesk Inventor with the roamer arm. Remember, there's another video. It's called Getting Started Pro Mesh. You want to go through that, learn how to use all the tools we talked about in mesh features. We appreciate your business and have a great day.